Good afternoon, everybody. It is now 3:05. In fact, it's actually 6 minutes past 3. I would like to suggest that we start our session, and we will admit people as we go through the session today. Firstly, let me welcome Gregory Otieno. He will be leading us through our Game Changer series for this afternoon. Before we continue, my name is Ayanda, and I am with the African Institute of Supply Chain Research, which is the institute that is providing these particular Game Changer series sessions. And I will be hosting the session for this afternoon. Before we go any further, I'd just like to set some of the house rules for this afternoon before I then introduce our esteemed speaker for the day. Firstly, I would like to request that everyone that is in the session to please put their microphones on mute, as it tends to distract the presenter if some background noise. You may also be put on mute by the host. It doesn't mean that you cannot ask questions later. At the end of the presentation, you're welcome to ask questions, and you then take yourself off mute. Questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring with the ISCA team, the chat box, and we will pose those questions at the end of the session as well. So if you, for whatever reason, aren't able to speak, you're welcome to put your questions in the chat. We have scheduled the session for from 3 until 5, where we allow the presenter to present, and then we really welcome and look forward to discussion with everybody in the room. And it's really an opportunity for us to discuss, share ideas, because even as the participants in the session, you are also experts in the field of procurement and supply chain. So we look forward to having an engagement, and that is not just the speaker who's only talking in this particular session. So those are the house rules. And with that, I want to welcome you to our Game Changer series. And I would like to welcome our speaker, Gregory Otieno, who's going to be talking about the future of procurement, moving beyond mediocre technology. And I'm really looking forward to that, because really when you talk about technology and how it can enhance supply chain practices, it's great to be able to hear from an expert in the field. And why I call Mr. Gregory Otieno an expert is because really he's an accomplished and multifaceted procurement and supply chain expert, spanning over 18 years within the industry, delivering optimal results and business value in environments that demand cross-functional leadership, and also convincing and influencing a diverse number of people from different disciplines and nationalities. And he really has an exceptional focus in terms of strategic and operational planning with both global, regional, and national roles, which he's going to be bringing into the presentation today. When I talk about his experience in terms of procurement and supply chain, it's across the board in terms of those areas, from strategic sourcing to quality control, administration, logistics, supply development, sustainability, Black economic empowerment, and also his industry experience is really quite diverse, from the construction to the engineering, FMCG, motor vehicle, manufacturing, banking and finance, healthcare, as well as the public sector and higher education. So as you can see, that really he's going to be bringing to us a wealth of experience within procurement and supply chain, across industry, across the whole supply chain, the value chain in terms of procurement and supply chain. And he's also going to be bringing in his international, national, regional experience as he talks to us about the future of procurement, moving beyond mediocre technologies. I'm going to stop here and ask Gregory Otieno to take over. Looking forward to your presentation today, looking forward to you bringing in your wealth of experience, and really looking forward to the discussion that we will be having afterwards. Mr. Otieno, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayanda, for that wonderful introduction. Colleagues, welcome to the presentation. And as Ayanda said, I think it's an engaging session. So all of us are expertise in this particular field. So let's engage and learn from each other. The topic of the day, as have been shared, is the future of procurement, basically moving from mediocre technology to what is happening within the industry at this particular moment as pertaining to the procurement technology space. Colleagues, procurement faces a tectonic change or a wake-up call due to the tectonic change that is happening around us. We are basically being led to a technological change within our space. And it's upon us to realize it and embrace it and take it upon us as quickly as possible to be able to move with the times as times change. If you look at today's procurement technology, there's a feeling that it's a completely failure. It's not really doing what it should do compared to what is happening around us today. And more specifically, if we look at it from a point of its abject failure, there's a lot of challenges that the technology that we use today within the procurement space is not helping us to do what we need to do. So what we're going to be looking at in this particular session are the following. We want to look at the landscape where we are at in terms of where are we at this particular point in time. And then, of course, we're going to look at challenges with the current suites of technology that we are using in our profession as procurement professionals. And then we also talk about how long has the journey taken us to be where we are today. What has happened over the years that has led us to this particular point where we are. And then we're going to also look at a question of what is the most critical element that technology should do for us, or technology within the procurement space should be able to offer us. And then what has been happening? Where did the revolution start in terms of where technology within the procurement space is going? And of course, we're going to see what is the current picture within the current technological architecture, or the modern procurement technology architecture, how it looks like. And then how the future looks like. Where will full automation take us to? And then eventually we'll see how we as procurement professionals within our organization, we can start a journey towards shifting from where we are, which is as is, to the new life that we are embarking on, or the new life that basically is upon us. What's going on with the procurement technology today, as I said earlier on, is that basically what we have today is for lack of a better term, is a complete failure on what we intend to do and what we need to give to our customers as in form of value addition. So after almost 20 years of procurement technology deployment, challenges are everywhere with the technology that we have. And the main result that come out of this is basically we are hindering excellence. We are not able to be doing things in an excellent way, that in a manner that we should be able to be doing them. And that is the result that is emanating from the technology that we are using today as procurement. So for example, some of the examples that we have is the normal usual catalog that all of us are used to. We know that the technology that we have been deployed for more than 20 years, what we have been using it for mostly is for strategic sourcing aspects of our operations. So besides the catalog that we do have, there's nothing much that we can really say that we are really adding value to, besides the user going into a catalog, clicking on it, and probably procuring whatever they need to procure. And then we don't have sometimes the visibility, or our users, our end users, or our internal customers do not have the what we call what the price should be. That particular information is sitting within procurement. So for an end user to be able to know what something costs or what the price of an item should be, they have to come to us for us to be able to give them that particular information. And what this leads to is cases of systematic embedded classification. What is actually purchased is not able to be identified by the end user, so that we can be able to manage whatever we are doing on time, and that's eventually being able to be excellent in our activities. And this is across the board. It's not only happening in let's say in the developed world where you and I mostly operate in, even in the countries that are in the developed world, sorry, in the developing world, that we can say that, oh, we are only facing challenges within the developing countries. Even countries within the developed world are facing the same kind of challenges within procurement and the technology that they're using, the same way that we are facing here in Africa, or maybe in other countries within the developing world space. For example, we find that users, as I've said, are normally not privy so much on what procurement is doing. And that is what is, most of the time we have had this discussion over many years, that when can procurement be welcome to the high table? The reason why probably it's taking longer for us to be able to be invited on the high table is because most of our internal customers are not normally aware of what exactly is happening. There's not that visibility. Everything that we do is, for lack of a better term, if you look at it in a holistical way, is more transactional. And most of the information is sitting with us. And if a user needs it, then they have to come to us to ask for that information, and then probably we will be able to extract it and then give it to them. As I've said, what are the challenges of the current status or the current suites of technology that we are using? We're using a linear process. The current technology is based on a linear process with sourcing activities on the left-hand side of the process, and of course, procurement to pay on the right-hand side of the process. And then with a neatly wrapped analytics and governance elements over it. So for us who are aware of the systems that we use, you find that when we are doing the sourcing activities like spend analysis and all those kind of stuff, they are sitting, we start with those kind of activities. When we are doing the strategic sourcing, we start with spend analytics. Once we finish with spend analytics, that's when now we decide to bring in the activities around the procuring. And then, of course, we go into the payment of whatever we have bought once they have been bought. So it's a very linear kind of trajectory, or a linear kind of process that we deal with. And this in itself makes it very rigid. It's a very rigid system. It becomes a very challenging system to really use in a fast-paced environment, as we are facing in today's kind of situation that is upon us. So if you look at it from a process map perspective, this is the procurement process that is sitting in most of organizations that we work for. You find that strategic sourcing, planning, and performance management sits at one angle, and then operational procurement, which is our downstream activities, as I mentioned, based on procuring, and then of course payment is then sitting on the other side. Of course, we have things like under the left-hand side where we say spend monitoring and analytics. We do things like project intake, pipeline management, initiative and resource management, spend analytics, as I said, and then of course benefits tracking. And this is a very interesting part, because if you go deeply, most of the activities so far that procurement has always been doing, or the value addition that we have always been putting on the table when we put our argument on the table why we are important enough for an organization, is normally basically to track spend, and with an objective of eventually deriving savings. Unfortunately, that as important as it is, times are catching up with us. It's not an argument that we can be able to put on the table for many, many more years to come because of the things that are happening around us. And of course, things like we normally do are things like supply information management, e-sourcing, contract management, supplier for performance risk management, and requisition management on the side of the sourcing side, the procurement side, sorry. And then of course, at the other end, we do the payments. And then I've talked about governance aspects where we have, sometimes we do have collaboration with other organizations. For example, in South Africa, there's a very good, within the higher education space, we know of the university buying consortium, which is the collaboration between the different universities, where there's one buying kind of buy big ticket items together. So with that, we can be able to use the tools that we do have through the collaboration processes. And then of course, there's industry benchmarking that we normally do as part of governance, management, and tracking whatever we're doing. So in a nutshell, basically, this is what happens in our environment today as pertaining to technology. But times, as I say, times are changing, and pretty soon, if not now, things are going to be really there for us as a procurement professional. Where have we come from? Where has the journey that has landed us with this linear project or this linear process, where did it start or where did it emanate? We see that in the early 90s, like in 1990, 94, 95 to late 2000s, we had different developments within the technology space. There was different components of innovation or development or process or progressing within the different applications as regards to procurement. So this particular period is basically known as the period of application era, where we find that, for example, between 94 and 96, we have things like Commerce One being founded, procurement technology provider Commerce One being founded in 1994. We had free markets coming to being in 1995. And then Ariba, of course, as a standalone company, was then founded in 1996. Between 96 and 99, we have the dot-com crazy or the dot-com frenzy, where we find the guys like Webango raising around $20 million in series funding. And then Mtros comes into being in 1999. In 2004, Ariba acquired free markets. So we start seeing consolidation in the early 2000s. There's some level of consolidation within the procurement technology service providers starting to consolidate. And then Commerce One filed for bankruptcy. So at that particular moment, some people are falling off from the bandwagon in terms of the procurement technology provision space. And of course, some are being bought out. And then in 2006, we see Cooper being founded. So this is an era that is more associated to the applications. So a lot of applications around procurement are being developed at this particular moment in time, and a lot of acquisitions are taking place, as well as a lot of investment within that particular arena are emerging. The journey goes on into the era that we call the all-in-one suite era. So this is the time that a lot of consolidations have taken place. And this particular period starts around 2007 to 2016. We see a lot of proliferations in 2007 of the suite solutions around procurement activities or procurement technology. We've talked about free markets that was founded in 1995. And then, of course, Ariba was then founded in 1996. And then in 2012, Sept then acquires Ariba. And then IBM on the other side acquires Mtros. And then in 2014, we see Scout RFP is founded. And 2016, we see Cooper founded. Then API Microservice Revolution begins. So this is where we now start seeing a little bit of a shift from what we call the normal procurement suites into a new era of kind of new technology that is starting to emerge. And then we see what is known as Amazonification of procurement. And we're going to see what that entails later on in the presentation as we go ahead. In 2017 up to 2020, which is basically last year, we see what we call the microservice era. So this is where in 2017, IBM Sun, basically the sun is setting on IBM MTROS, and IBM is basically directing every other person who had bought their suit to off-ramp to Sept, to take the Sept technology around the EPR system. In 2019, SoftBank invests around $100 million in globality. Enterprise software companies start entering into the procurement space. So we are starting to see basically software-based enterprises coming into the fore in 2019, and Scott gets acquired for $540 million by Workday. And some of us are well acquainted with the Workday story. And then 2020, we see the proliferation of microservices. We're still within that particular space even now. APIs, the connected ecosystem of value creating technology now is a thing that we now see. We're now starting to see what we call the we see the connected ecosystem within the procurement technology space at this particular moment in time. And then what is happening after in this particular period of time also is the death of one size fits all solution. So 2020 is only last year. So there's already a death of things like all-in-one size fits all. And then the rise of the digital operating platforms start cropping in. So in a nutshell, that basically has been the journey throughout the procurement technology space, what has happened over the decades or over the years as we move from one technological solution to the next, and one technological service provider to the next, and so forth and so on. The most important thing that a procurement technology should be able to provide is to offer a robust yet easy to use system that any organization can then be able to utilize to turn their goods and services into a value addition. So any technology that we use as procurement professionals should be able to provide this kind of system. And the technology also ought to be able to put power of the procurement in the hands of the user, rather than the user being at the mercy of a system or a rigid procurement process. And this is a very powerful element. As I said earlier, the systems that most of us have been using or are even currently still using, we tend to do something that I normally tell my colleagues is that we are like rugby players. If you watch the game of rugby very, very closely, the idea is to have the ball with you and guard that ball as closely as possible until you touch down at the other end of the opponent's side. So all the time you're trying to protect the rugby ball not to be snatched from you as much as you can. And if you look at what we do within the procurement space, most of the time, if we are not careful, we tend to be holding a lot of information, but we hold that information within the procurement space. So it's like we are holding the information we have that can be able to enable us to have an argument on the high table that we always ask for to be able to be allowed to sit on. So for example, I'll give you a typical example. In my days at Standard Bank, we had a very good relationship between us and procurement and the finance department. So once finance had done all the budgets around the entire group budget, they would then hand that information to procurement to then analyze that data and filter out information around spend areas that procurement can then be able to influence, and then come up with a procurement spend in terms of what they're able to influence or what we were able to influence. And then once we are able to extract that information, then build what we call the savings target. And with that, then we could go to the higher executives to present that this is what the bank is going to spend for this particular financial year. And this is what the savings target we are targeting. And we need you as executive to sign off on this so that we can be able to get the mandate to move along and implement. And so you find that that is a very penitent and important information to have, because that is what gave us the opportunity to be able to put our case in front of the executive and be able to get that mandate and be able to be recognized as a unit that is doing something to the organization. Now, let's take, for example, if that particular information is taken out of our hands, let's say where there's challenges around the relationship between procurement and finance, for example, where you have probably an executive, a finance executive, who doesn't want to share that particular information freely with procurement, then basically you are curtailed. You become completely crippled, because now you are unable to lay a viable argument to the organization of the viability of the purpose why procurement is in that organization or is allowed to operate in that organization. And we have had several cases where it hasn't always been an easy journey between procurement and other units in different organizations. So with the new technology, or with the technology that is viable and technology that is forward-looking, you as procurement, you no longer have to worry about that particular aspect of your activity. You know that any given particular time you have influenced the availability of that particular technology, and that particular technology is filtering the information to the end user in an easier and much valuable way. Then the other important aspect of an up-to-date or today's technology is that it can be able to enable the users to be empowered. The users now feel that they are empowered because of the value addition that procurement is adding to them. And as we go on, we're going to see that particular aspect on how that is achievable and how that is possible. The start of the revolution, as I said, started with the raising of different financial investment within the space of procurement technology. We see, like, for example, TAMA had an investment of $41.2 million. They have invested that. Those are investments that are currently taking place as we speak now. And this is basically around the microservice space. We see people like Bonfire, who have raised 11 million in investment to invest in the procurement technology of the future. Lavidata is 5 million. And so all these particular different organizations have been able to invest or raise investment for the different solutions that they want to be able to create. So for example, you have, as I said, TAMA is analytics, Bonfire is things like RFX, the RFP, RFI, and so forth. They're focusing in developing solutions that are just talking to those particular aspects of our activities. So we don't see one big entity or one big company that is probably running everything, as we have seen with the all one size fits all suits that we are used to. We are now seeing the proliferation of individualized service providers or solution providers that are specifically gearing their investments to the specific sections or specific activities that we carry around the different activities around procurement that we do carry. So things like sourcing and analytics, we see people are investing heavily on procurement to pay as a standalone solution, contract management, and so forth and so on. So there's a more focus to individualize activities rather than the entire suite of procurement activities that we undertake. This is what the modern architecture then turns out to look like. So once these organizations have actually developed the different expertise or the different strengths within the procurement activity arena, which they have specialties and expertise in, it then changes the architect of the current procurement landscape, procurement technology landscape, to this kind of architecture, where everything now is no longer in a linear process. It's more fluid. And when I looked at this particular diagram, what came into my mind is, these are buzzwords that are now common in our day. There's things like artificial intelligence. We understand things like blockchain that are coming into play, and how those kind of technologies or how those kind of solutions are going to be able to enable us as procurement professional, or not even only procurement professional, or other activities or other functions within an organization as a whole, to be able to be faster, be more nimble, and be more agile in terms of delivery of solutions or services that need to be delivered. So in the procurement space, that particular kind of landscape is also starting to emerge. And this is what we are currently looking at, or what we expect to in the future to be seen, as compared to the linear process that we saw at the beginning. So this is what is going to really hit us very soon, or even in some situation, in some organization, it has started hitting. And what happens is that the cynics can basically say, but look at all these startups. We've seen that people are raising money. Companies are trying to raise money to play within certain specific functional or activity areas of procurement. And there's a lot of cynicism around it. Some people are wondering what is going to happen. Will they be, because they are small players, or we may tend to think that these are small players who may be consumed, gobbled up by big players that we have always been used to working with and knowing in our day-to-day activity. But the most interesting thing that is sitting with this thing is that the smaller they are, the nimble they become. And the space whereby the software development industry itself has undergone a major transformation. There's a huge transformation that has happened in the software development space within the period of a decade. So we are moving from the normal softwares that we know that probably are sitting in a server somewhere to cloud-based software solutions. That is something that we currently are aware of. People are moving away and pushing stuff into the cloud. And so you find that that's where we have the microservice element coming into play, which is supporting the application of programs and interfaces. We now see a lot of management of programs and interfaces around, not only around procurement, but around other functional areas. These microservices are allowing for app to be seamlessly. So the available of microservices are allowing applications to be seamlessly connected. And as we can see in the diagram, all they need is one artificial intelligence hub for this individualized, specific procurement activity areas, service providers, to be able to connect with each other and to be able to talk to one another and to be able to seamlessly be able to offer solutions that can be able to enable us work more efficiently, effectively and efficiently. And this then enables the easy and seamless exchange of information across applications. So we're not just sitting with one rigid system or one rigid linear kind of solution, but we are having a seamless connectivity and seamless communication between the different solutions that are at play within our profession. So these are the advancements, or these are the solutions that then make it possible for us to be able to function more nimbly, more agile, and more faster than we have been operating for the last couple of years that we have been running or we have been working within the procurement profession. So, for example, if you look at this particular picture in front of us, you see, like, let's say Lavidata, for example, will do things like cognitive buying, or let's take something that we are more familiar to. Let's say spend visibility. We are able to have spend visibility at our hands. At the same time, we are able to see what is happening within the procurement to pay space. We are able to operate e-sourcing, and we are able to manage things like temp labor. I remember one at one of my former roles, we had a situation whereby we always had to have temporary labor on standby, because if you have somebody who doesn't come in at work at a particular wee hour of the morning in an operation, then you need to quickly replace them. You need to quickly replace him or her as quickly as possible, so that the complement on the floor at that particular moment in time is still 100%. And of course, the tool that we used at that particular moment in time was Sept. Sometimes it was very cumbersome, because sometimes, you know, Sept, you have to load the contract. If you don't load the contract, then it's very, very difficult to be able to have a service provider on site without their contract being loaded on the system. So, and it becomes a little bit rigid, and it becomes time consuming, and it takes a lot of time because you're depending on an extended ERP system. But with this kind of system, where you find that there's a simply solution that is sitting by itself, that is just managing the temp labor aspect of your buying activity, of your buying activity, as I've said. So those are the kind of things that we are starting to see happening. We are seeing people are now starting to concentrate on standalone aspects of procurement that then enable the organization or enable the function to provide more value and more the organization. So basically what it helps is that operational procurement is well on its way to becoming a fully automated kind of activity. Now, if we have this kind of architect that then fully automates the procurement activity, and how do we say that it's now fully automated? It's fully automated because the end user themselves can then now see these things. They can be able to pick and choose, because once we load certain aspects of information that is needed by the end users, they can now be able, at their own desk and at their own fingertips, the information can then be able to be handled with them. Then we find that the activities and the operational aspect of our work that we do on a daily basis is automated. A good example is, I was looking at one paper that was talking about contract management. If the contract is fully automated, and we're going to see towards the end of the presentation on how that impacts on what we as procurement professionals do. At this particular moment in time, and I guess in most of our organizations, we still probably legal drafts the contract, then procurement reviews the commercial aspects of that contract to see that everything that procurement probably had negotiated with the potential supplier is in place, and of course all the the performance metrics that needs to be performed by the contractor are in place. Then once that is done, of course the contract is sent out to be signed. Once it's signed, then we start doing what we call the contract management by putting things like SLAs and blah blah blah, monitoring the SLA on a continuous basis for purposes of, let's say, service contracts. But in future, we're going to see where the aspect of contract management is going. What are going to be the elements that are going to be not being done anymore by procurement professionals. So in a nutshell, this is the view of where we are going, or basically in some organization where they are at. some organizations in some of the developed world are already in this particular space. They're already playing in this particular arena and reaping the benefits. Some of us, we're still taking our time and trying to reach this particular moment in time, but it's there. It's already there. It's happening. It's coming, and it's going to hit us hard when if we are not prepared to embrace it. So, as I said, the future is on its way out. We are becoming a fully automated function. Artificial intelligence is already embedded in some of the solutions that are presented to be able to enable us to embed predicted supplier risk monitoring to make us be able to read early signals of what are the what we call challenges that we may face with a supplier. I've just been expounding on contract management. This is the aspect of contract management, where the AI can now be able to monitor supplier performance and predict any risk or any challenges that we may face with a particular supplier. Major components of components such as procure to pay are already going into that direction, as well as functions being automated to enable buying of high-end items. So AI sourcing managers are already being utilized. Those are artificial intelligence management systems that are at work and are at play. For example, for those people who know about the chatbot, the chatbot is something that forward-looking organizations who have embedded modern technology are able to utilize aspects of the chatbot in terms of supplier help desk to enable handle any supplier queries or any supplier issues. So for example, if there's an RFP that is going out and the queries that are normally come out from suppliers, these are can easily be handled by the chatbot. The chatbot can be able to communicate directly to the potential suppliers in terms of answering the queries and the aspect of the RFP that they need to understand and to be aware of. Things that in a normal or in a linear process that we have, or some of our organizations have, procurement officials do today. For example, typically we are used to elements of you send up an RFP and you arrange for an RFP briefing session where suppliers come in and suppliers are briefed and they are given an opportunity to seek clarity and clarification are given in terms of different aspects of RFP depending on the spend threshold of that particular RFP that has gone out. Those particular things are now being done automatically. You don't need to call for a supplier briefing session. There's no need. The supplier can easily log into the procurement system, go in there and have a chat with the chatbot, the AI system. And the AI system, based on the parameters that have been laid up in front, can be able to talk to challenges or elements or questions that are being asked. I talked earlier on about blockchain. It's still very much in its infancy. There's a lot of still issues that are being ironed out around blockchain, but it's there. It's something that people are starting to see the benefits around it, and it carries the greatest potential for procurement going forward. And for us who understand what blockchain is, we know how the interconnectivity that is brought about by blockchain technology, what potential it can be able to bring to us as procurement professional. So this is what is currently happening. This is where the journey has reached, and this is where the future now is going towards. So most of the things that are happening, basically, we are already into the future. So whether we like it or we don't like it, the future is already with us. And it's just a matter of us seeing how best we can fit into this future that is imminent upon us. I talked about the chatbot. This is a typical example of what I was presenting earlier on. So you find that, for example, this is a typical example of a situation that can be handled, where automated customer support is activated, and we see this particular kind of discussion between a supplier and of course an internal procurement function, whereby the supplier is asking different queries or inquiring around different things that they will want to know, and there's no procurement person sitting there spending their time engaging with this particular supplier. The system, the technology that is embedded and has been put in place is engaging with the supplier as needed. So these are things that are already here, things that are happening in forward-looking organizations. So how do you start the journey towards this particular aspect of embracing the future? How do procurement professionals, how do CPOs, chief procurement officers, undertake the process of embedding this new technology that is coming upon us into their procurement organizations and into their space? Basically, there's three ways that this can take place. There's three ways that can be utilized in terms of trying to embed the new technologies that are proliferating at this particular moment in time. The first step is being as is, having what is there, which is a linear process, and basically doing what we call, number one, a full-scale replacement with a new upgraded end-to-end procurement suite. So the benefit of this is that single-ended procurement suites, it becomes a very single end-to-end procurement suite, and it's very low in terms of complexity. So it's not very complex. And then, however, the trade-offs or what you trade off when you do this is basically there's a lot of investment. There's a lot of upfront investment. So it simply means that you take off whatever you have currently, you just trash whatever you have currently, and put the new architecture that we have seen as full as it is. And of course, there's investment in terms of money. The outlay, you will have to outlay a lot of money in terms of bringing in a full new system. And of course, also the rollout normally is around 2 to 3 years. The time to roll out that particular kind of solution is 2 to 3 years to really see it fully rolled out. And of course, benefits realization takes years as opposed to months. So it's not like something that we're going to just realize the savings immediately or benefits immediately. We got to be patient. So there needs to be a lot of patience around approaching the kind of the first step of just taking out everything that you currently have as a procurement leader, and then bringing in a whole new suite of the current solutions that are being provided. So, and there are some procurement organizations that are deciding that, you know what, we want to go this way. But for you to be able to do that as a procurement leader, and it really takes a CPO who have, first of all, the CPO has to have the vision. They have to be somebody who's very passionate, has got a lot of passion in terms of what they're doing within procurement. And of course, there has to also to be the willingness to take this kind of journey in terms of changing the landscape. And of course, it's not going to be just a smooth, easy ride. The progress is normally slow, and sometimes it's painstaking. So it's always never smooth. So there's no what we call a silver bullet to this. So, and that's why there's that advice that it needs to, you as a leader within the procurement space, to implement this particular kind of solution in this lock, stock, and barrel. You need the passion that is attached to it. However, there's organizations, as I said, who are decided, or entities that decide that, you know what, this is how we want it to go, and that's how we're gonna implement it. Then the second option that is on the table is the full-scale replacement with new upgraded end-to-end procurement suite and adoption of new technology. So maybe there's some organization, or maybe there's some of us that their technology maybe is reaching end of life, or it's still got a couple of few years ahead, and they're already starting to think of changing the systems and things like that. The second option is you may beef up some of the current suits and also fuse in some of the new technology that is on offer, that is being currently offered. Benefits of doing that is best of breed back-end procurement tool. So you'll have a best of breed procurement back-end tool, fully customized to users' journeys. So, and it offers a huge great benefit potential. And then, of course, you're also adopting the nimbleness and the agility of the new technology that we are talking about. So, and with the adoption of the nimble and the agile technology that is now being mooted and being adopted in many organizations, or which is going to be the technology of the future, then what happens is that you are able to start reaping some of the benefits, some of the short-term benefits of this new technology, while still keeping the old system in place, the old system planning in place. And of course, the trade-off that you're trading off in this particular kind of scenario is that the high-end level investment is needed for this to be done. We of course know that investment in procurement technology, or technology in terms of the spend aspect of it, or investment of it, is normally one of the biggest ticket items or spend items in an organization. I remember one organization that I worked for. Our technological spend was the second biggest spend, after we had, of course, taken care of what we call the normal facilities management, because at that particular moment in time, we were doing a lot of expansion in terms of construction of facilities. So that aspect of facilities expansion and group expansion, of course, was taking a huge part of the capital expenditure because of what was happening. But when you come to the operational aspect of it, when you come to the operational spend, IT was sitting on top, and it's the entire IT basket. And if you look at it, when you chunk the IT spend basket into the different categories or the different components of the IT spend, you find that technology that then is needed to not only operate the procurement function, but also to operate other units within the organization, the number was really, really massive, or was really big. So in this case, you have to have the stomach to be able to understand that this is an aspect that needs a lot of investment from capital expenditure aspect of it. And then, of course, we have the what we call the best of breed, which is basically you're doing a deep dive. You're picking what is best in the different activity areas, and it's simply agile enhancement of the existing procurement technology, while integrating onto it by connecting it specialists that we have seen. If we go back to this particular map here, so it's basically sitting with what we have, but then picking some of this what we call best solutions for the different activities. So, for example, you may say, okay, fine, I'm going to keep my SAP ERP, for example. But in the contract management space, I want to bring Concord in to see what enhancements or what other further advancements does the Concord contract management bring into play, or things like smart contracts or things like risk monitoring. So it's basically you're trying to pick and choose what are some of the areas that you want to start seeing benefits of having a future landscape within the procurement arena. And the benefits around doing this is basically saying it's a modest investment over time and future proof. So you're not investing a lot of money into it initially, but you're starting to reap a little bit of some benefits that comes with having a future technology within your landscape. And then, of course, you have an accelerated delivery of benefits. So you find that, for example, if you decide that you wanna put in, like, for example, the activity that we saw of the supplier help desk, for example, you may still have the normal ERP system that you have, but you have plugged in the supplier help desk, which is totally automated. So you're starting to realize or benefit in terms of when suppliers have queries or when suppliers have issues that needs to be resolved, you don't need to really wait for a procurement resource to come to play. Automatically, the system then handles that and takes care of that. And then tools can be chosen to customize. With this, you can be able to, as I said, you can be able to pick and choose how you want to customize your journey. You can pick the specialist areas that you want to implement immediately to start realizing the benefits around it. And then, of course, the trade-off that you're trading off by doing this is the existing technology backbone remains. So the ERP that you currently have or that is currently still functioning is still there. Over time, intelligent and automated technology may supersede the old system. So you find that with time, you may find that you probably may lose out on certain things that you didn't implement. But in general, you are able to, with this kind of third system or third way of implementing the future, you are able to be sitting in between, whereby you can still piggyback on the old system, or you can still use the functions that are performed on the old system for obvious reason. And of course, you can also be moving into the new space of the future. So in a nutshell, basically, that's how, or those are the three modes of trying to implement the technology that we have. And the thing that is going to make us move, or the thing that is going to make procurement move, is, as we saw earlier on, we have things like Amazonification of the function. Look at what Amazon has done, or look at what is going on within spaces of what we call individualized purchasing or individualized procurement. We all do shopping one way or another. And it's funny enough that you find that today, if you want to buy something, and more so, the buying of items have been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic, whereby most people, even now, just to buy their meal, you do a remote purchase. You go onto your phone, you go onto an app, you select whatever you want to eat, you send, probably even you pay, and it's done. You do everything by yourself. But you, as a procurement professional, imagine this, very ironic. Tomorrow you go to the office and sit on the side of the internal client. So take yourself as a procurement professional and sit on the side of an end user within your organization. Yesterday, you could be able to go onto your phone and be able to buy whatever you wanted to buy. It's a simple meal, it's a very simple procurement. It's a very low spend, very low risk, of course, relatively so, because we tend to think that it's not risky. It's risky because if you buy the wrong food, probably, for example, if it's contaminated, then of course you're going to be sick, and God knows what can happen to you. You see what I'm, but let's say on an ideal situation, nothing happens, nothing is ulterior, everything goes well. You've called your meal, you've gotten your meal, it has come to your door, you've already paid, it's been delivered, everything is done. Tomorrow you go to the office, you sit there, and you want to buy a gadget or you want to buy something, and procurement is telling you, no, wait, you have to wait. It's going to take you 14 days. It's going to take us 14 days to run an RFQ or an RFP, blah, blah, blah. You'll tend to be a little bit, for lack of a better word, taken aback. You say, but what's wrong with these procurement people? If I can buy, I mean, a food, yes, it's a little bit awkward comparison, but some of our colleagues reason that way. And we have to accept that. They bring that particular kind of notion to the argument at certain times. They say, but come on, guys, what's going on? I mean, I can go to Amazon. I can go to, for example, in South Africa, there's Take a Lot. You can go to Take a Lot. You can buy a fridge. You can buy this. You can buy. How are you able to do it on your own personal level? And why is procurement within the organization unable to do those kind of things? How are we not able to empower the end user and give that value? And then, of course, we're going to say, but you know what, some of us are going to be cynical a little bit, say, but you know what, if I do that, then tomorrow I don't have a job. That's not the argument. The argument is that when you look at it critically, that's the value you have added. And you find that you are opening more doors by availing those kind of efficiencies and availing those kind of information at the end user's fingertip, that in instances, they can free your time. They free your time to be able then to focus on other high-end value addition activities. And probably why we are even taking longer as procurement professionals to be able even to embrace the new technologies and to understand these new technologies that are in play is because we are so much absorbed and we are so much consumed by the operational day-to-day activities and trying to find as much information as we can to be able to give it to the end users, that our time is totally occupied, that we can then we cannot free ourselves and free the time to be able to always be ahead of the curve. So with this kind of thinking and with this kind of knowledge and with this kind of technologies when deployed, then you find that you as a procurement leader and we as procurement professionals, we enable ourselves to free a lot of time and add a lot of value into an organization that you may think at the beginning that it's going to really make you be out of a position or make some of your team members be out of the position. But you may find that it's the information you are giving is so much valuable that then the team is more utilized because they have a lot of what we call retained information and retained knowledge around the system and where things are going, and around procurement and around other things that are happening around the world in terms of, if we look at our entire supply chain kind of value chain. So this is an opportunity for us. This is an opportunity for procurement. And although the journey is not an easy journey, and it's not a journey that started yesterday, it's a journey that started many, many years before. I mean, we've looked at just a small portion. We've looked at from 1990s, early 90s to the 2000s. But yes, it's been a lot of time, but also it's a very short period of time that a lot of changes have happened in our profession. And it's upon us to be able then to say, we want to embrace it and we want to really work with what is coming to us and how we can be able to then be in a position to then add value to the organizations that we are working for. And so basically, in a nutshell, this is where we are at. And this is the picture that is going to emanate in the future. This is the kind of architecture that we're going to see moving forward. These are the kind of things that are starting to happen in our space. and they are happening on a daily basis. They are happening as quick as we even don't know. So, I mean, it's just a matter of changing our perspective, changing our view, and changing how we do things, and seeing how can we then be able to be people that can be able to add more value to our organization. Time have gone where we no longer even talk about spend management or cost savings. Procurement has gone to a point whereby now people are talking about. I was reading something yesterday talking about what we call the net zero space. The net zero space. How is procurement going to be able to contribute to the net zero space if our focus is still on the linear source to pay kind of value addition process that we have had? It's not going to allow us, because it's not a nimble kind of process. We're not going to be able to manage supplier contracts in a fast and quick way to be able to realize that maybe one of our suppliers is contributing to CO2 emissions, and how can we then be able to know that as quickly as possible to be able to mitigate against that? The technology is now there. Technology can be able, like the technology that I was saying, I was presenting, where the supplier contract management solution, it can be able to tell you if there's a problem. If you are an international player where you have suppliers that are supplying you from the international market, if they have any image problem in a different country, that technology is able to pick that before even the issue really hits you at home where you are. They're able to pick it, and the system is able then to generate what we call a mitigating response if your organization needs to put out a response in terms of that you are using that supply. The system itself, through AI, generates a response, a communication from procurement that is then sent to the communication department of your organization to be able then to put out, if need be, that a communication that mitigates against any bad press that may come towards the organization is needed. And so that is only possible if procurement is embracing those kind of technologies. Where procurement is not, is still using the old system, then you have to wait. The information then hits the international press. Then probably once it hits the international press, we know how our local press normally waits also. They depend on international press. Once the international news has broken out, then our local news then picks it up. Then it now becomes a local issue. Then now the organization then starts to think of, how do we then mitigate this particular challenge in terms of brand image? And then probably you as a CPO, then now you're called into a meeting by the senior executive. How was this supplier engaged? Did we follow the proper process of selecting them? What are some of the management aspects are we putting in place to manage them? How have we been managing them? Have they been delivering? What are the evaluation criteria that we use to look at things like risk? By that time, I mean, your organizational brand image has already been tarnished. Now you're trying to really work to try and rectify it. But if you have a solution that then taps into the information which is happening out far away from where you are and relaying it to you, by the time it hits your local press, you had already even engaged your senior executives to really know that the system has already warned you that there is a problem with this particular supplier. This is something that may hit the brand image of the organization, and this is the communication that needs to go out. So those are some of the advantages or some of the examples of the nimble and agile technologies that are there now, that are in use, and that can be deployed. And it's just upon us as procurement professionals to search for them, find them, and motivate them so that they can be deployed in our organization as part of our value addition to the organizations that we work for. And colleagues, basically, that in a nutshell is what is happening. It's what is happening. It's just one view or one prism of what is going on around procurement. There's a lot of other things that are happening, not only with technology, but with other things. But when we have the right technology and when we have the right kind of tools that enable us then to understand what is going around us, then we are able to operate more efficiently and more nimbly and as value adding as much as we can. And with that, I thank you very much for the opportunity to listen to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for that journey that you took us through in terms of getting ourselves from mediocre to best practice in terms of technology. I'm going to, at this point, open up the floor and indicate that if anyone would like to ask questions, you're welcome to raise your hand with the icon that is there, or you can put your questions in the chat, or you can directly just take yourself off mic. Whilst people are thinking about their questions, I'm going to ask the question that Jonah asked. And the question is, among the front runners in ERP, that is the examples of Oracle, Sept, Microsoft Dynamics, is there any that so far incorporated?
I hand it back to you. I think I'm done.
Are you not able to hear me? Gregory, are you not able to hear me? Or is anybody able to hear me?
We can hear you, Dr. Ayanda.
Oh, okay. Perhaps he can't hear us.
I think he's having some network issues.
Okay. I actually thought the network issues were from my side.
We can hear you perfectly.
Okay. All right. Gregory, are you able to hear us? The problem is on his side. For those in the room who can hear me, we'll just give him like a few seconds of time. Okay, it does look like there's an issue in terms of Gregory's network. What I'm going to just, can I ask the host to just type and ask him perhaps to take himself off camera? It might help with his if you can just type in the chat.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you very much. Whilst it's being typed in the chat, I'm just going to give everyone an opportunity to, if you have any questions on the chat, you can write them down in the chat if you don't want to forget.
Yes, Prof.
So we can hear him now.
Hi, Prof. Yeah, just mute yourself.
Dr. Ayanda.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gregory says he can't hear you, but he can hear the rest of us.
Wow. Okay. So then can I ask?
I'm not sure.
Ask the questions.
Sorry?
If you can hear everybody except for me, can I ask you that you ask the questions that are in the chat?
Oh, okay. Let me just do that.
And in fact, it then means you are taking over hosting, Venolia.
I'm just gonna read the questions and the comments. And then
Okay,
I'll
thank-
hand over to you because we can hear you, some of us, we can hear you. You can just close up after the questions.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Venolia. You can ask the questions.
Okay. Okay, there's one question from Johan, which says, among the front runners in ERP, that is Oracle, SAP, and MS Dynamics, is there any that has so far incorporated this all-round technology that can claim to have an end-to-end supply chain visibility? That is the first question from Johan. I'm gonna hand over to Mr. Gregory.
All right, yeah, thanks very much for that question. As we saw during the session, there is what we call there's a runaway from what we know traditionally as the all-encompassing suite. So if you look at the first diagram where our normal process map, this is what we have, and this is what we have always been running, like for example on SAP or on which for now is SAP Ariba, and on things like Oracle. And so the ERP that we have, this is how it's mapped out. And if you go to your process map on an ERP, basically this is what you're going to see. But we are running away from that, or the new technology, or the future is going to what we saw, which is basically this. So this is the map that is coming in. So you're not going to see these guys, or you're not going to see this different service provider or different solution providers being, as I said in the presentation, bought or gobbled up by one big, massive software provider that we know of today. These are people that are, or these are solution providers that are sitting on their own. They're mapping these solutions on their own, or they're mapping the specific different activities that we do, and basically making them more efficient, and then throwing them into one AI hub, which is one artificial intelligence hub. So it's more like we are calling in IT, they use what we call there's a name that is applied like if you want to write a software now, you don't have to be an IT guru. Basically, there's a way that you can be able to write a software without really being boggled down by the normal system or traditional ways that we know of. And you can be able to throw something that is able to be efficient and useful. In this case, not in procurement, but in any other field that you may be interested in. So the same kind of mentality or the same kind of thinking is also happening within the procurement space of activities. So we are moving away, to answer the lady's question, we are moving away, or the listener's question, we are moving away from the big guys where everything is the ERP that we know, the enterprise. No. We are coming into what we call artificial intelligence hub. Our things are put in, are held in one cloud space, and you go in and pick what you want to use and use it and use it to the best. Well, you're not losing out on other aspects of your procurement activity. You are still being able to utilize those other activities, because all these guys are communicating with one another, or they are communicating with each other through a central hub. So to answer that particular question, is the simple answer to that question is no. These guys are not embedded into either Oracle or into SAP or to anything. We can use them as procurement professional in addition to what we have. So you can decide that, you know what, I have SAP, ERP, but when it comes to the example I gave, like for example, when it comes to the supplier support aspect of it. At this particular moment, even if you're using SAP and you're running an RFP, you will still have to do what we call, if you put an RFP out, you will still have to do what we call the RFP supplier clarification. You'll still have to do that meeting. And you will have to do that meeting either physically in your office somewhere by bringing in the suppliers in and giving them the necessary briefs around the RFP. And of course, clarifying any queries that they have. And that has to be done physically in your office or in a site somewhere where you have chosen. But you're still running the RFP on SAP or on the system that we have at play at the moment. With the supplier support, you don't need to bring the suppliers into one room. Suppliers can easily access the chatbot system that you have. They can ask the question with the chatbot at any time they want. The chatbot can be able to answer the questions based on the parameters that are built on the system, and you move. So yeah, I don't know whether I've answered that particular question.
Thank you so much for that answer. I think you have elaborated your answer and it's more understandable. We do have another question from Ozias Ngube, which says, while still looking for improved technology capability for procurement function, what does digital transformation mean for our skills set as supply chain / procurement practitioners or professionals?
Okay, a very good question, and that's a question that is common, especially with this new advancement of the technology that is coming. I think we as procurement professionals we will need to enhance our skills, and the first point of call of enhancing our skills is to understand these new technologies that are coming into play, and how we can then use the skills the raw skills that we have, or the hard skills that we have, that we normally know of, that we use on day-to-day basis, to be able then to enable us to function, but function in collaboration or in tandem with this technology that is coming in. Of course, some of us will unfortunately will be placed redundant. For example, if you have an automated system whereby the contract is managed automatically, you may have some of your procurement team that are charged with managing the contract management aspect of different suppliers, being either made redundant, or if you are, and this is more so to the leaders within the procurement space, to then start looking at how you can then upskill your teams, and that's why it's important to understand where the future is going, so that we can then be able to prepare our teams in different ways to be able to then to fit into the new landscape that is coming our way. So I gave an example which was completely outside the topic of today that we are talking about. There's, as I say, there's other spaces within procurement and within the wider supply chain space. We haven't even looked at things like, I mentioned an example of net zero solutions. We see what is going on with the supply chain space now with this issue of COVID-19. Look at what is happening in the UK with the issue around it's being wrapped in so many ways, whether is it the Brexit that is causing the fuel shortages, or is it the pandemic that is causing the fuel shortages? So we can only, as I said, we can only be able to wrap our heads around it if we move away from our comfort zone. We've been so comfortable for a very, very long period of time with doing what we call strategic sourcing. Unfortunately, strategic sourcing is growing legs now. And if we are not comfortable with the strategic sourcing methodologies and techniques and approaches that we have been doing, that are basically reliant on the old system and the old architectural landscape of the technology that we have been using for many, many years, then we're going to be left behind. So the downside is, if we are not careful, some of us are going to lose out as procurement professionals, and that's the sad part of it. But it's not all doom and gloom, because it's us. We need to embrace it. And maybe to put it in another dimension, we looked at the history of the proliferation of the technology that we have been using up to now, and even the coming of this new technology. If we look at it critically as procurement professional, and this is something that hit me also, we have never been what we call fully involved in the development and understanding how those technologies have developed. We have always been held captive to the technology suppliers. We have always been held. If SAP buys a riba, and SAP comes and say you got to deploy this particular system, we've basically gone blindly. We've just been like sheep led into the field where we don't know what is going on, and then we just end up using that system. But if you look at it critically, we haven't been really asking ourselves the introspective question: is that what value is this system really adding to, one, to me as a professional, as a procurement professional, and two, to the organization that I'm working for? Is it just because the supplier came to us and said, this system is good? This everybody, or saying, like, I'll give you a typical example. SAP normally comes with the story of so-and-so uses SAP. And we see this even in billboards when they advertise. SAP doesn't tell you that the element of the value they add comes as a fine print. But most of what you see is they say Essentia is using SAP, or Standard Bank is using SAP, BHB Bilton is using SAP. So they tell you who and who is using SAP for you to be drawn in. But we as procurement professional, we need to take that deep dive and take the lead within the procurement technology system. But to answer the gentleman's question, the reality is, if we are not careful, some of us are going to be left behind, unfortunately. But we don't need to be left behind. We need to engage with the technology that is coming. It's a beautiful landscape that is coming in. It adds a lot of more oomph to the procurement profession, and we stand now even to bring more value to the organization than ever before with these new systems that are coming into play. But we just need to know how to utilize them to our benefit.
Thank you so much, Gregory. I'm now going to open the floor for anyone who has any question which they would like to present. You can now present your questions if there's anyone on the floor to ask any question.
If there are no questions, I actually have a question, but I have a question which I will put on the chat, actually, because I'm realizing that Gregory cannot hear me.
No, I can hear you now. Now I can hear you. Go ahead now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now I can hear you.
All right.
Sorry about that, Ayanda. Earlier on, I couldn't hear you, but now you are very clear.
That's okay. That's fine. My question is, I mean, you mentioned in your presentation how you were able to work with finance, and you had a good relationship with finance. I wanted to find out how are we able to do that with IT, so that one, we are more empowered in terms of the technology that us procurement professionals use, and we're able to influence that technology, because you also mentioned that we tend to keep the information, like I think you use the thing of a rugby, the analogy of a rugby ball, where we keep information. So how do we give information so that we can have technology that empowers us and we use it, similarly to how you did so with finance?
Good question, Ayanda. One thing that I've always encountered in my journey as a procurement professional is the element of everybody asks what does procurement do? What does procurement do? And as procurement professionals, we know our journey. We know where we have come from. We know where we are, and we know probably where we want to be and where we're going. When it comes to the relationship with the internal stakeholders, be it finance, be it IT, the magic or the way that I've experienced or I've seen to do it is as individuals. First and foremost, as procurement leaders and as procurement players, is we try as much as we can to always sell our value addition to the organization. It's not an easy journey. It's not an easy play. Simply because, remember, we are individuals who are what we call not peculiar, but each of us have got their different traits and behaviors and so forth and so on. But the most important thing is to always keep on selling procurement. Any given small opportunity that we have, anything that we are given that is small, that is put on our table, let us utilize it to the maximum, because that is the only thing that is going to open the doors for us. Allow me to go back to my experience when I was with the bank. When I joined the bank, we went in, and all of us, we were all new. Procurement was completely a new function within the banking system. It was new. Nobody knew what was happening. Before us, every unit manager or every unit executive was running his own show or our own show, managing their own budget to the best of their ability. So you can imagine where we started. We started with what we call the mice and the rats. You start killing the small animals in the jungle, and when you kill them well. You make sure that you eliminate them well. So whatever is put onto your lap, you run with it and run it with it as best as you can. And slowly by slowly, people started to realize, okay, there's a team that is sitting here, that there's certain things that they're doing that are really changing the way we have been doing things, and is really starting to add value. So, for example, I'll give you a typical example. The first task that we were given was to streamline the stationery, how stationery was being bought. So if you look at it, you're coming in, you're this procurement professional, excited, you've been given this portfolio, run with it, you're happy, you think, oh, we're gonna bring these wonderful ideas, and then you're told the first thing we want you to look at is look at stationery. Now, the bank used to have their printers for what we call security stationaries, where those are things that are printed that are secure. They're, for example, I'll give you it's a stationery, something like a checkbook. They have a supplier that has been there for as long as probably have been alive. You see what I mean? Their grandfather started supplying the bank, and they're still supplying the bank. And you want to pull this particular business out of business, because basically they are not adding any much value to the organization. Their prices are off the roof. You bring all these good procurement negotiation tactics on the table. These people have got a long-term relationship with whoever are the senior elements within the organization. It's going to hit you. Somebody's going to make noise somewhere to somebody, and all of a sudden you're going to get a lot of noise coming your way. But when we looked at that particular item, we looked at it critically, we analyzed it well, we presented the savings that we could get out of it. When the time of executing it came, it was executed, and it saved the bank the money that we had said it was going to save. The doors for dealing with finance were open. Then the finance director then started saying, okay, guys, I need help here, I need help there. The same applies to IT. When you go to IT, there's things that IT normally doesn't want to share. I'll give you a typical example. Things like software, sometimes they don't want to give, they don't want you to see. They want to tell you, go buy the laptops and the desktops. Those are normal for us who do the quadrants and spend analysis. If you look at it in the quadrants, things like laptops and desktop, they're basically more of operational, they're not strategic. The strategic items like the operational interface that the organization uses, who loads that interface, who is able to change it, who loads the securities, who's got access to all those things that then gives admin, those kind of things. Some of them are not built internally. Some of them are done outside by third parties. And then of course they're sold to the organization. Most of the time they don't want to give you those kind of ticket items because those are the big ticket items, and those are the things that make them tick. And those are the things that make them want to be there. But whatever they give you that is small, if you tweak it and tell them, I've put more value into your basket in terms of the savings that your division or your department is seeing as IT, then they can be able to start opening their doors for you slowly by slowly. So there's no one magic wonder apart from just doing the hard legwork with the little item or the little door that has been opened for you. I remember we used to have a term that we coined in our team in procurement, that when they open the door just ajar for you, make sure you knock it open. Before they realize it's open, that they cannot hide anymore, they cannot lock it anymore. It's already open. You're seeing the entire spend threshold that they're spending, and they are left with no other choice but just to work with it. And so, to answer your question is, we're gonna still keep on doing the hard work by working with them, trying to give them the savings as much as we can, and doing the rudimentary operational activities that we are doing. However, the new landscape of architecture of procurement solution provision that has come is an opportune opportunity for us to utilize. Look at it this way, that, for example, as procurement, you put the spend analysis module that is giving you spend, and at the same time, you put the contract management module that is just handling contracts. And the example I gave, IT is sitting probably with a contractor that nobody else knows about, and there is the only one they know. And then you ask them, no, let's load that particular contractor into the system. If for whatever reason, this particular contractor has got some risk issues that they're dealing with, either things like they're being, they're being bought out, or they have handled something in a manner that is going to impact your organization's brand, then that value is going to be seen that procurement is the one who enables us to be able to unlock this particular gray area or particular danger zone that we were not seeing. So in a nutshell, it's not easy. Is it doable? It's doable, but you have to work very cleverly, very slowly, very painfully with these particular units. And I know IT is normally a very challenging customer within any organization, because they like protecting their stuff. They protect it with everything that they have. Believe me. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Thank you very much. Yes, you have comprehensively answered it. Thank you very much. There's another question that's in the chat from Patrick, where he is from the Ugandan perspective. In Uganda, the government is currently piloting the EGP to enhance service delivery. And Patrick is asking, in your experience, is this walk to EGP worth it? Is this not a merit for the privileged?
Good question, Patrick, and thanks, Ayanda. I was seeing the question on the chat. A good question, Patrick. I'll answer your question with the Kenyan scenario. The Kenyan scenario, Kenya did what we call it's an electronic procurement platform called IFMIS. So if you Google IFMIS, you read about IFMIS. It's also a similar kind of e-procurement platform. My take from your acronym of EP is just electronic government procurement platform. That's what probably I'm guessing it is to be. If I'm right, if I'm wrong, that's fine. You can correct me. But one thing with the system, a system is as good as the governance around it. A system is as good as the people who use it. A system is as good as the support that it gets. You can have a Rolls-Royce system, but if not used properly, if it's not supported properly, it doesn't bear the fruits. A case in point, if you read about the IFMIS system in Kenya, you'll see the challenges that IFMIS is facing. And for that matter, the reason why it was brought was to try and curtail corruption. Corruption is still very high in Kenya in terms of the public procurement space, because simply people ignore it. People just decide they don't want to use it. In the public space, when we come to public procurement, the political muscle and the political support is normally very, very vital for a system to operate optimally. Recent story in the newspapers about the Kenyan system, whereby basically the Kenyan procurement public procurement authority doesn't have the budget. They're not being provided the necessary budgets to be able to act as because they're oversight acting authority to make sure that people abide by the different procurement legislation and processes and policies that have been put in place. So the system will be, as a system, it can be the best system that is going to be there, but who are the people who are going to use it? Who are the people who are going to support the people who are using it? And how is the support going to come? So I don't know whether Uganda has a public procurement management authority that then acts as the oversight authority to make sure that procurement is run and managed in a manner that is ethical, value addition, and open and fair. So yeah, so at the end of the day, it's good to automate, but automate if you know that you can also govern it and support the system to then push out the information and do the job that you want done. So is it a good system, or is it a good idea to automate? Yes, it's a good idea to automate, because they're trying to kill corruption and they're trying to open up the procurement space to visibility as much as possible. But the answer is the proof is in the pudding once the system is deployed, and then people start using it. The different procurement people in the different government units or government departments start using it, and whether they're going to be really be given that support and the power that they need to be able to make sure that the system delivers what needs to be delivered. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm noting the time. Melissa, I think asked a follow-up question. I'm not sure if you see it on the chat. Is this going to aid in adaptation to the fourth industrial revolution?
Yes, yes, Melissa. Everything is anchored upon the bigger picture, which is the fourth industrial revolution. Everybody is going there. everybody is automating, other functions are automating. People are trying as much as they can to automate as possible as they can. And lo and behold, COVID has hit us, and COVID has also brought its own dynamic in terms of operations. Believe you me, I don't think we're going to go back to the normal way that we were operating before, even if COVID is finally brought to control and life goes back to normal. I don't think people are going to go back to that situation whereby everybody was working in the office from 9 to 5 or from 8 to 5 or whatever time. Remote work now has become part and parcel of us. I can give you an example. I'm sitting in Kigali at this particular moment. Yesterday I was around 150 kilometers somewhere in the bush, working from there, and stuff like that. And delivery is done. So how are we going to be able to do this if we as procurement professionals have to attend a supplier briefing session? It's impossible. It's going to be next to impossible to be there physically. We are conducting this particular session remotely. We didn't meet in one big hall and they did a meeting and stuff like that. So yes, this is part of the fourth industrial revolution, and everything is going there. Things like AI, it's artificial intelligence, it's not human intelligence. These are computers talking to people, computers talking to each other, computers analyzing and churning out data. So it's no longer the human intelligence now at play. It's more artificial intelligence, and that's what the fourth industrial revolution is all about. Yes, it is. Yes.
Thank you for that. I've noted Geraldine's comment where she's basically agreeing with you about the system. That is not necessarily for the privilege, but it depends. It's critical that the system is clear, transparent, and user-friendly guidelines. And that it's also extremely user-friendly. So I think she's agreeing with you that whatever system it is, it depends on how it is implemented.
Yeah. Yeah. Any computer system that is implemented. Remember, guys, at the end of the day, and somebody asked a question earlier on, is that does it mean that I'm going to lose my job as a procurement professional when we go into this automation and stuff like that? There's still governance aspects. You still have to monitor governance elements around it. The policies are still, we as procurement professionals are still going to have to put out policies. But now we need to put out policies that are aligned and in sync with the systems that we are bringing in place. You see what I mean? So I'll give you a typical example. Like, for example, we in the public procurement space, it's normally a requirement that you put an RFP, and then for certain threshold of spend, you then have to make sure that you have a supplier clarification meeting where the suppliers have to come in and they have to sign a book, or they have to sign in that they attended the meeting. And then, of course, after the clarification meeting, the minutes of the meeting have to go out, blah, blah, blah. That if you look at most public procurement policies, you will find it replicated multiple times in different public procurement organizations. It's a replicated kind of thing. You may think it's even just a copy and paste kind of scenario. But with the system, those kind of things, that particular element of actual attendance of a meeting and signing in a book and blah, 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 it's going to go out of the window because it's not going to be probably now necessary. You see what I mean? If I'm a supplier and I want to bid, and there's a chatbot that I can talk to, I mean, I'll talk to the chatbot, and the chatbot is gonna document our discussion. It's gonna more accurately document what we have chatted about, because it's system built, it's system documented, and it's system generated, and any document that needed to be generated can be generated. So how more transparent can it be? How more transparent can it be? But the policy that is aligned to that has to be tweaked and changed to meet that particular circumstance. Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm going to, just noting the time that is 5 minutes before our time, and invite anyone to take themselves off mute and ask any last questions or make any last comments. Okay, I also don't see any hands up. So I'm going to just take this opportunity to begin to ask Gregory if you'd like to say some closing remarks or comments before I close the session in totality. Gregory, would you like to say anything?
Just that thank you very much to Prof. Ayanda, Venola, for you guys' support and guidance, and for actually having these sessions. They are educational and they are very beneficial to us. I appreciate them, and thank you very much for this opportunity to be a presenter today. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gregory. And I'd like to say thank you to you for sharing with us your knowledge and participating in the discussions, giving even more insights. So thank you very much for that. I'd also like to thank the participants as well, because without you, we wouldn't be able to have these sessions. So thank you for your comments, your questions, and engaging the speaker for this afternoon. And I notice a lot of you are regulars with our Games Changer series. And just to let you know that we will be having the next Game Changer series on the 26th of October, and encourage you to join. We have been recording the session, and you are able to, if you'd like a copy of the recording, you can contact the ISCA to request a copy of the recording if you would like that as well. And with that, thanks to the team at ISCA, particularly to Vinolia, who took over as the host. Greatly appreciate it and the continued support, but thanks to the ISCA team. And I'll say to everybody, please have a safe evening, stay safe, and hope to talk to you or see you at the next Game Changer series, which is going to be on the 26th of October. Thank you. Priscilla, I'm going to ask, we'll take your email, but if you can also just send an email through to ISCA to ask for the recording as well, if you don't get it, but we will take your email address now, Priscilla. Okay, with that, thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy your evening. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.